tears of poisoned rain. Sacred the soil that hugs the seed, sacred the silent fall of snow, sacred the world that God decreed. Water and sun and river flow. Where shall we run who break this code? Where shall tomorrow's children be? Left with the ruined gifts of God, death for the creatures, land and sea. We are the voices for the earth, we who will care enough to cry. Cherish her beauty, clear her breath, live that our planet may not die.
Spirit of God, unseen as the wind, gentle as is the dove, teach us the truth and help us believe, show us the Saviour's love. You spoke to us long ago, gave us the written word. We read it still, needing its truth, through its God's voice is heard. Spirit of God, unseen as the wind, gentle as is the dove, teach us the truth and help us believe, show us the Saviour's love. Without your help
Come and follow me if I but call your name. Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown in you and you in me? Will you leave yourself behind if I but call your name? Will you care for cruel and kind and never be the same? Will you risk the hostile stare should your life attract or scare? Will you let me answer prayer in you and you in me? Will you let the blinded see if I but call your name? Will you set the prisoners free and never be the same? Will you kiss the leper clean and do such as this unseen and admit to what I mean in you and you in me? Will you love the you hide if I but call your name? Will you quell the fear inside and never be the same? Will you use the faith you found to reshape the world around through my sight and touch and sound in you and you in me? Lord, your summons echoes true when you but call my name. Let me turn and follow you and never be the same. In your company I'll go where your love and footsteps show. Thus I'll move and live and grow in you and you in me.
Good morning and welcome to Bishop Auckland Methodist Church. Welcome to those of you who are in church. Welcome to those who are listening on 105.9 Bishop FM and to those who are joining us on YouTube. For those on radio, you won't see that I have my wonderful plant beside me and it's still looking healthy. I have my wife who's a darling rose on the other side of me. And beyond my rose of a wife, I have a rosemary plant that has been sent to us this week, and we will tell you a little bit more about that later. And then at my feet, that you mightn't be able to see yet, are lots of banners encouraging us to think about the environment. And this is the eve of COP26, the Conference of the Parties meeting in Glasgow, and Vanessa and I are about to head in that direction. And up there in Glasgow, we'll be thinking about important things with Green Christian and other faiths. We'll be thinking about nature, climate justice, joy in enough, and hope.
Current national commitments will fail to prevent uncontrollable and irreversible global heating. If the outcome of COP26 gathering in November 2021, this coming week and the following week in Glasgow, is sufficiently ambitious, it could avert climate breakdown, preventing incalculable suffering, massive loss of life, and the extinction of innumerable species.
That's right. And faith has played an important role in motivating change throughout the centuries. Our Christian belief and our gathering for worship today convinces us that change is possible.
We're going to share with you this short report, which focuses on the 4 themes that decision makers at COP26 need to address: the interconnectedness within nature, the importance of climate justice to protect the vulnerable, the potential for well-being without ever increasing consumption, and the significance of hope if change is to be achieved.
The UN Secretary General said this: "We are on the verge of the abyss." It's a scary place to be.
On God's earth, the complex natural systems that nurture, sustain, and feed us also bring joy, refreshment, and restoration of the body and soul.
Christians recognize creation as a gift from God. It is ours not to exploit, but to be nurtured and safeguarded, thus providing climate and ecological justice and hope for the future.
Human beings cannot live apart from the natural world. And it says in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 29, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, and yet I tell you," says Jesus, "even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these."
And so we gather today, and Earth's leaders will gather in the coming weeks. Green Christian urges increased ambition from those leaders gathering and attending COP26. The UK government must take a lead in delivering fair and far-reaching policies for the common good of us all. The world cannot afford any more delay by its leaders. And without any more delay, this is a worship service and time for a hymn. So I invite you to join us in singing "Creator God of this fair earth."
Spirit's work in mountain, field, and wood.
Thank you, Niamh, for once again singing our hymns for us and helping us to sing along, although I hope you didn't hear all my wrong notes. What inspires people to change? We're going to find some insights now from a Christian perspective. And those four headings that we said earlier, nature, climate justice, joy in enough, and importantly, hope.
Nature, all of creation is sacred and full of wonder. There's someone who said, Elizabeth Theocritoff said, as we cease to look at the world through the fog of our desire to possess, there forms a space of wonder and respect, allowing each creature to exist in itself and for the Creator. We take a moment to reflect on nature, to give thanks for it, to grieve the losses suffered, and to long for freedom and health rather than decay. For Bishop James Jones said, we are part of nature, not apart from it. There is no future for anyone if COP26 is bad for nature. For it says in Romans chapter 8, verses 19 to 21, for the creation waits with eager longing to be set free from its bondage to decay. We reflect on nature.
We reflect on nature, the first of those things that faith groups and especially Christian groups can bring to COP26. But as we reflect on nature, we also want to reflect on climate justice, because that is a key biblical concept also. As the earth warms, it is the most vulnerable communities, those least responsible for climate chaos, who are most likely to suffer devastating loss and damage. It is a justice issue. Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me, Jesus says in Matthew's Gospel. And in Amos we have these words, let justice roll on like a river, and righteousness like a never-failing stream. Or as Professor Tim Gorins puts it, to trash the planet is to throw God's gift back in God's face. Let us take a moment to reflect on the biblical, on the Christian, on the Jesus emphasis on justice, especially justice for the poor, justice for the marginalized, justice for the voiceless. Who will speak up for them? Who will speak up for them in the meetings of the next 2 weeks?
And so we consider joy in enough. We long for fairer, supportive, peaceful, and flourishing communities, living within the earth's limits. Hannah Malcolm said, as we abandon fear in favor of gratitude and praise, we will be made a joyful people, unburdened by self-defense and self-gain. And Bishop David Atkinson says, our Christian story is not about the acquisition society, but rather about a cooperative society and the common good, based not on the assumption of individual self-interest, but on living within God's given limits, on shared human values, and on the welfare of all of God's creation. We take a moment to reflect. Enough being more than enough. To realize all must have enough to live on and to prosper, without taking too much and not leaving enough for all that is yet to come.
Nature is important. Climate justice is important. Joy in enough is important. But maybe the most important thing that those of faith and those of the Christian faith can bring to Glasgow is hope. It is the bedrock of our faith. It is what gets us up in the morning. It's what sends us out into the day to keep doing things against a background that is often gloomy. Prayer is the sense that hope is a resource that we can truly access. Or as it puts it in Hebrews, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. So take a moment to reflect on hope. With God, we always have hope, however dark and however wrong things are, however difficult it is to change direction. We do have hope in a Creator, and not only in a Creator God, in a Recreator God, who begins by changing our despairing hearts into hopeful praying ones. Lord, we pray to you this morning that you will change lives, that we will respect nature, that we will embrace climate justice, that we will have joy in enough, and that we will be hopeful people, motivated by the hope that you give for the goodness of all in this world. And we thank you, hopeful Creator, Recreator God, that in your love for us, you gave us this planet, and we don't think you're finished with it yet. Our next hymn is God in his love for us lent us this planet.
God in his love for us lent us this planet, gave it a purpose and time and in space, small as a spark from the fire of creation, cradle of life and the home of our race. Thanks be to God for its bounty and beauty, life that sustains us in body and mind, plenty for all if we learn how to share it, riches undreamed of to fathom and find. Long have our human wars ruined its harvest, long has earth bowed to the terror of force, long have we wasted what others have efforts to farm and defend from its pollution, misuse and destruction. Good Lord, deliver us, world without end.
So what do we want? What do Vanessa and I want as we go up to Glasgow, apart from warm weather and sunshine, and not Atlantic storms and cold, icy weather hitting us as we walk the streets of Glasgow? What do we want? We want to enjoy nature, we want climate justice, we want joy in enough, and we want a hopeful resolution from COP26.
So, for that reason, we are urging the UK government, but not only the UK government, all the governments and parties who are gathering in Glasgow for the Conference of the Parties, as it's called, the COP26. We want to urge them all to acknowledge the severity of the climate and nature crisis. We challenge them to set in motion with immediate effect a detailed and practical plan to meet our moral obligations. And such a plan must address all these four notions: nature, the protection and conservation of nature here and overseas, recognizing the damage we cause through the goods that we consume, climate justice, and our entire carbon footprint in the UK and overseas, recognizing our historic accountability for greenhouse gas emissions and our responsibilities towards the most vulnerable. Joy in enough, where we are supporting or we support behavioural change to cut our own emissions instead of continuing to pollute and relying on unproven technologies. And hope. Hope in the need for active involvement of the ordinary people in decision-making, in charting the way forward to a flourishing future.
So, that all sounds really good, Vanessa, but how do we put this into practice, and how do the government and the parties gathering put this into practice? What will the result be for food and farming, for climate change, for trade and consumption, for green jobs, for transport? What is the practice of a greener society? Well, the UK must do some things. And first of all, it's prioritising the management of trees and hedgerows, soil and water to sequester carbon, to restore wildlife habitats, and to bring the benefits of nature to everyone. And that's why we have a rosemary plant beside us. We have ordered 50 trees.
It smells good.
Yeah, you're enjoying the smell of the rosemary plant. We have ordered 50 trees to plant a native hedge around the church, to plant hawthorn and different trees that are there to protect and to encourage and to help us appreciate nature. They're not quite ready to go in the ground yet. They'll arrive with us mid-November. So if you have any horse manure, please leave it in the church garden.
No, not quite.
Horse manure is really good for planting trees. And if you've got a spade to come and help us plant 50 trees, we would love to have your help. But whenever I mention to the suppliers of the trees that we were going to Glasgow, and we wanted a sign of hope to bring to them. They sent me this wonderful plant in a box, and they said, carry it up to Glasgow. Give it to a church up there, or put it in a public park, and bring some hope to a city. And therefore, the UK as a nation, and we as individuals within that nation, must think about our hedging and about our land around us to ensure the production of healthy food and a healthy environment. And also to focus in on less meat consumption, to cut down on all those doner kebabs and parmos that we enjoy so much in Bishop.
Maybe find something else than lamb to have with our rosemary.
Yeah, the rosemary is a good start if we find some other lovely plants to have with it. Why do we do this? Well, globally, the food system is the biggest single source of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. We emit lots of gas as a world to feed us. And what we do is important. We all want to eat, but let's eat and produce food and farm and grow in our gardens sustainably.
That was thinking about nature. And now we think about climate justice and climate change. And we ask them to consider, and the UK and all the governments, we must share expertise in renewable technologies and behaviour change to facilitate a net zero future for all, with a restored international aid budget from this country.
And that's good that the budget this week has said that the international aid budget will increase, but not to the end of this parliamentary term. It needs to be restored now.
Yes, so that we promote that sustainable development. And why? The world is nowhere near being on track for decarbonising in time to prevent climate breakdown throughout the planet. We are an affluent nation here in the UK, and we owe a debt to those communities from whose wealth we have historically benefited.
So climate justice is one of the key things that we're asking the government and the governments to recognise in Glasgow, but also joy in enough. The UK must accelerate behavioural strategies, champion sustainable business models, and cut our overconsumption, developing a circular economy. The budget didn't have much sign of that this week. So why should we do it? We are using resources at a rate that the planet cannot sustain. If we all lived as we live in the UK, it would take several planets for us to exist. Green Christians' Joy in Enough programme challenges our current economic systems of trade and consumption. And if you want to find out more about this, Green Christians' Joy in Enough programme is available on Zoom, commencing on Wednesday, the 17th of November. We've signed up to it. We want to know more about this, and if you want to join us, just get in touch.
Yeah, and it's every third Wednesday for the next few months. There'll be something, so it's worth listening into that. And then, most importantly, as we say, we need hope. And the hope for us in this country and throughout the world is in green jobs. And the UK must invest in green jobs that prevent carbon emissions. We must decarbonise the energy sector to make buildings energy efficient, to reuse, repair and recycle, to support the circular economy, to expand public transport and organic agriculture. And why? Why? Because we need to create a sustainable net zero economy in which people have jobs that reduce our environmental impacts and restore our damaged natural world. And if we want a biblical reason why, listen to Jeremiah.
I do enjoy listening to Jeremiah.
We've been listening to him for a few weeks, but in chapter 29 and verse 11, he says, God says through him, I have plans for your welfare, to give you a future and a hope.
Definitely we want a future and a hope, and what will that future look like? The UK must develop a net zero transport sector, providing the benefits of improved air quality, quieter streets, and better integrated public transport. HGVs and buses, and many of them pass this road in front of us, must be zero emission. Rail networks electrified, and car driving, we all like our cars, car driving reduced, whether they're electric or not. Why? Because transport is the UK's biggest single source of greenhouse gas emissions, accounting for 34% of our emissions in this country. The UK government has budgeted over £27 billion to be spent on roads, funds that need to be spent instead on improving rail infrastructure and accelerating the transition to electric cars and getting us out of cars onto public transport. Hope and determination to achieve a net zero world, we need to get on our bikes and get to that net zero world. Our Creator God is always one step ahead of us, and he sets the world in place. Our next hymn.
Praise
So what is our government doing? That's the thing. Well, we hope it's going to act on food and farming, on climate change, on trade and consumption, on green jobs and on transport. What is our government doing, Vanessa?
Well, Greta Thunberg
Yes.
Greta Thunberg would say it's all blah, blah, blah.
I do like Greta Thunberg. And blah, blah, blah. Lots of political talk, and we hear that all the time. But not much thought and not much action. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, not much listening either. Humanity needs to listen out for the wild patience of God, who creates and sustains the universe despite the human sin that desecrates the natural world, says Frankie Ward. Despite its environmental targets, the UK government is not on track to reach its goal of net zero by 2050. Meeting the Committee on Climate Change's carbon budgets requires more than pledges and promises, more than blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so we need action, 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 I think is what Greta would encourage us to say to our government.
We need Parliament to pass far more ambitious policies on food and farming, climate change, trade and consumption, and on green jobs and transport.
Right. That's what we want the government to do, and we're clear on that. But it's not just the government acting, we all have a responsibility. And the next question is, what are the churches doing? What are we doing here? Well, I hope we're doing something, Vanessa.
Yeah. First of all, we hear about the Young Christian Climate Network. They are a community of young people motivated by love for people and God's creation, putting their faith into action for climate justice.
And I met some of them in Durham. We walked from Bishop Auckland, a group of us, to Durham, and we joined that protest walk. They had carried a boat-shaped structure from Cornwall, and they're carrying it up to Glasgow, and we met them at the cathedral and walked down into the centre of Durham. And yeah, that's one of the ways churches are acting.
And then this Climate Sunday, they're happening in churches up and down the country throughout this year, throughout 2021, to pray and take action for climate crisis. I think we've actually had 2 here.
Yeah, we get carried away with this kind of thing. We had one back, I think, May time, and the first Sunday in September we also marked as Climate Sunday.
Mm-hmm. And then Tear Fund is providing a climate emergency toolkit, a route map for churches to respond to the climate crisis with simple and powerful actions. And there is Eco-Church. Eco-Church is a program that enables Christians to reduce their church's energy consumption and promote sustainable lifestyles. It starts when you sign up with doing an audit.
And that has inspired us. We have changed light bulbs in here. We have insulated loft ceilings and loft spaces. We've provided an EV charging point. We've planted a garden, and the rosemary's there. The hedging's going in, soon going in, we hope. So if there's any horse manure, get it with us. We need it to plant the hedge. Yeah, it's really good for hedges. We provide water for birds and frogs, and Anna is nodding her head because, yes, she remembers the tadpoles going into the pond.
And we'd like to have a bigger pond in the garden,
Yeah.
I think.
The hedgehogs that walk round us looking after them.
And we've got our Bronze Award.
And we got our Bronze Award and the lovely space out in the garden and the labyrinth and the seat. Working with other churches in the town to install solar panels and to go carbon neutral in our heating and in our buildings.
Green Christian has Operation Noah, which has spearheaded action to end all church investment in fossil fuel extraction. And we've been listening to different seminars on that.
And the Methodist Church has stopped investing in fossil fuel companies. That's good news this year.
And we hear that the General Synod of the Church of England voted that the church should strive to reach net zero emissions by 2030.
2030 net zero. That is a challenge for every church in the land.
That's only 9 years to get there. And then the Laudato Si movement is responding to the call from St. Francis, cited in Laudato Si, to hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And they are training local leaders, and we know some of them in this community.
We're disappointed that Pope Francis, because of his health, just like the Queen, because of her health, cannot be at Glasgow. It takes those faith leaders, like the Pope, like our Queen and head of the Church of England, it takes them to invest their ethical, moral, spiritual qualities. The churches are speaking with a voice, and the churches not only have to go blah, 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 we have to act and get our own houses in order.
And then we have Christian Climate Action, which carries out acts of public witness and civil disobedience to urge those in power to make the changes that are needed.
We hopefully won't be getting arrested in Glasgow.
I definitely hope that we're not arrested.
I want to be back to conduct Remembrance Sunday services, but we have a timetable of activities that we will be involved in. We will be involved in working with other churches and faith groups. We will be leading worship. On this eve of COP26, we prepare to take the train to Glasgow. We prepare to pray and protest. We prepare to listen and to lobby. To talk the talk, but also learn to walk the walk. And that literally could be for miles and miles as we walk between the different venues around the city. And we will be feeding back information each day to the churches through Facebook pages and through my eco-blog on the Bishop Methodist website.
But we have a greater ambition. Our Christian faith motivates, underpins, and supports us as we strive to safeguard the future, and hopefully all Christians will share this. We urge our political leaders to grasp the crucial opportunity at COP26 to deliver on their promises, to push hard for what is necessary to maintain a stable climate, to protect and conserve nature, to provide funding for poorer communities to adapt to the climate disruption that they are already in many cases suffering, which we richer and privileged nations have caused.
We are calling for a lot of action, and we're calling for your support. Vanessa and I urge you to pray for us and pray for all the faith leaders who will be in Glasgow as we listen and talk, as we encourage, and as we do the best that we can to maintain the beauty of the earth that God has created. Our final hymn.
Gracious God, each perfect gift and sign of your love so freely given. Graces human and divine, flowers of earth and birds of heaven. Gracious God, to you we raise this our sacrifice of praise.
We've raised our sacrifice of praise, and thank you for joining us this morning. If you want to know more, we've used a green Christian resource that has plenty of references, and we can give you greater detail in what we have been saying. We are going to Glasgow, as I say, shortly, and the Zoom service on the 7th of November will be from Woodlands Methodist Church in Glasgow. We're part of Faith Gathering there, and we will be broadcasting back to you in the Bishop Auckland area through Zoom. So please get in touch if you would like to join us. And go with the blessing of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Go holding this world and all who live on it and all that lives on it in your thoughts and prayers. Go praying that a just solution, that necessary steps will be taken, that the blessing of God can continue to be shown to this wonderful world that we inhabit. Now go and enjoy it. Plant and enjoy.
And come back to hear Susan Thorne, one of our local preachers, on the radio, 105.9 Bishop FM, and on YouTube next week at the same time.
God bless.